Sex is the life force energy that runs through us all. Can you use sexual energy for your spiritual evolution? Or perhaps for emotional healing? Is it even possible? Clinical Sexologist Dr. Martha Tara Lee will explore all these and more on Eros Evolution on OMTimes Radio.
Welcome to Eros Evolution, where sexuality and spirituality meets. I am Dr. Martha Tara Lee. I'm a clinical sexologist based in Singapore, and my company is called Eros Coaching. That's eroscoaching.com. I've been in practice for 8 years, and I work with individuals and couples to help them to have a great sex life, and so that they can go on to live their lives fully. A lot of people just associate me as somebody who only thinks about sex and is sex crazy. However, what I really believe in is in us embracing all of who we are. And I'm very interested in the link between sexuality and spirituality, and which is why Eros Evolution always explores the link between the two. Every week, I have a different guest. And this week is different because I am doing a summarization of the past 13 episodes of Eros Coaching. This is the 4th time I'm doing a summary, and often it is seen as, in my opinion, a little bit of a cheat sheet. Also, when you have different guests coming onto the show, from time to time, it is important to just slow down and do a little bit of reflection on what I have learned. And I hope that that will be useful for listeners as well. So a little bit of a recap of the past 13 episodes of Eros Evolution, a little cheat sheet that you have, and the takeaways that I have gleaned from each of these episodes. So here we go. In episode 47, which took place on December the 3rd, we have Charlie Glittman talking about getting the sex that you want. Charlie is really quite a well-accomplished and well-known sexuality educator. He's also a sex and relationship coach, sexological body worker, and an internationally acclaimed speaker. So he's been working in this field for the last 25 years, and some of his areas of focus include sex and shaming, sex positivity, queer issues, masculinity and gender, communities of erotic affiliation, and many other sexual and relationship practices. In getting him to be on this show, we talked about what would it be like if you could have the sex you really, really want, and whether we can imagine making it happen. He wanted to come on this show to talk about overcoming shame and embarrassment, finding new ways to talk about your partners, and discovering new ways to experience pleasure. And these were the things that we went into during the show. He started off the show by talking about what somatic sex education is about. He explained it as learning about cooking from a cookbook versus actually cooking. So he used to be working in good vibrations, and after some time he wanted to move into understanding about the body. It's about, for him, practice versus talking, thinking, and reading about sex. He explained what sexological bodywork involved. And I'm also a sexological body worker. However, in my work in Singapore, I do not do any touch or nudity. Instead, what I do is I use the training and knowledge that I have learned from sexological body work in my work. And I educate people using sex toys and sexual aids. And there's a breed of sexuality educators coming forward to have sexological body work who actually do body-based work. And Charlie Glittman is one of them. He explained the structure where there is hands only, there's no penetrative sex. It's different from sex surrogates who actually engage in physical sex. He also talked about the importance of breath work and how sessions are very much experiential. A lot of times they spend time talking about how a client wants to be touched and it's not about the provider telling the client what to do. He talks about the benefits of using a somatic sex educator to learn about your bodies. First of all, when you're with your partner, the needs of your partners and the expectations of your partner needs to be factored in. So it's very different being with a therapist per se versus being with your best friend. So being able to separate it is cleaner. The second advantage of it is being able to discover and explore things that you wouldn't have known about yourself if you didn't explore, because you just keep having sex in the same way, for instance. Then you wouldn't be able to explore things that you didn't know you enjoy, and you can do that safely with somebody who you are engaging to go on this journey. The third thing is there's this big potential for sexual growth and healing because there is a structure and you are with someone who knows how to get you there. So talking is a big part of the sessions, and from understanding where they're at and where they want to go, the educator, the sexological body worker would then be able to bring them there by having had the training of how to help them connect the dots. He talked about trauma and how some people can have a physical reaction in their bodies when they have gone through traumatic experiences, and the emotional support will help them to unlock all these blocks that can happen. We talked about blocks, and one of the big blocks that he talks about is sexual shame, not just your own but also your partner's. And one of them could include things like masturbation. He talks about, gives concrete suggestions of what we can do in addressing the issue of sexual shame. The first one is developing shame resilience, and he recommended the TED video by Brene Brown on vulnerability. So when we have this muscle, we don't get shamed so easily. The second thing is to have be with people who have the same perspective of sex positivity, or who want to learn about themselves or be more embodied in their bodies, or be more sexually confident and comfortable. So being with people with the same perspective and being very conscious about the community that you are with can actually help you also overcome sexual shame. The third one is working with a professional. That is valuable to work with someone like that and whose agenda is to support you in your growth. So Charlie Glittman also offered this free 30 session or 50% coaching session for listeners out there. So if you're interested to find out the details about his offer, do check out episode 47 on December 3rd, Getting the Sex You Want by Charlie Glittman. And you can find out more about his work by going to his website, makesexeasy.com. That's right, makesexeasy.com. He's a very prolific writer as well, so you definitely want to check out his blog post. I subscribe to Charlie Glittman's blog post, and I really love his work, and I'm sure you will too, because he's really phenomenal, and I really recommend checking out his website, Make Sex Easy. In the next episode that I had, in episode 48, which was on December 10, I talked to my colleague, Dr. Agata Louis, and we talked about how she is bringing sex positivity to Poland. In case you don't know, Poland is predominantly a Catholic country and a Catholic religion. They practice Catholics, and they are predominantly Caucasian. There's a lot of sameness, and when people are different, they are pointed out and they stand out, and they are very much mocked and discouraged. So it's very difficult for people who are LGBTIQ, which stands for lesbian, bisexual, gay, transgendered, questioning, and intersex people. So she does campaign against against homophobia in her work in Poland. She also described how it's like in Poland where prostitution is illegal, and it is very difficult to even go for treatments around fertility like IVF. During the show, we discussed the difference between sexuality in Poland, in Singapore, and also in San Francisco, where we both got our doctorate in human sexuality from the Institute for Advanced Study of Human Sexuality. So we were from the same school, but not necessarily from the same batch. So she was really talking about her work, and then she talked about the link between sexuality and spirituality for her. To her, spirituality has this feeling of being untouched, and it can be quite therapeutic and a form of release. So she talked about how spirituality connects people and how that feels very different for her. So if you're interested to explore sexuality in different kinds of environments and climates or even countries, you want to check out this podcast because it will give you a different way of thinking and understanding and appreciating sexuality that comes and in different forms, and also there's a cultural effect to it. And in the next episode that I had, episode 49, I talked about sexual empowerment and sexual bliss. I had Eva Durga, and basically she was talking about how she had created this online platform called creativesexuality.org that you want to check out, creativesexuality.org. So she's created this platform where there are online sexuality classes that are being offered, and we discussed how online classes has a way to help expand sexual knowledge and also serve a social purpose. So do check out this creativesexuality.org, and we'll talk more about the different episodes after this break.
The future of internet radio is here. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Live with medium Lisa Phoenix, Mediumship Messages and Musings, explores mediumship and all things metaphysical. Lisa Phoenix invites you to reach above and beyond your everyday experiences, to explore new dimensions in the spirit world. She will do live readings to connect callers to their loved ones in spirit, shares engaging stories and teachings from her own personal experience, and will have intriguing conversations with other mediums, spiritual teachers, and healers to help you understand the metaphysical world so you can connect to these forces in your day-to-day life. Join your host on this magical and metaphysical journey into the world of spirit every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time.
This is Julie Geigel.
I'm Maggie Chula.
And I'm Catherine Glass.
And we're the Psychic Angel Channelers. Join us every week here on OMTimes Radio for Angel Talk Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time.
The angels have heard your call and are here to help.
Are you ready to receive?
Remember your magnificence with Angel Talk Tuesday.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network. The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is. Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back to the show. We are talking about all the different episodes of Eros Evolution for the last 13 episodes. So today is a summary, and we are talking about episode 50 right now that happened on December 24, which is one day before Christmas. And it was actually Christmas Day for me when I was doing the show. And we were talking about rising in love with Piasa Nico-Sift. And she just released a book during the show, and it's called Intimacy Adventures. The Intimacy Adventure Playbook 33 Provocative Explorations for a Deeper, Hotter Love Connection. And her website is intimacyadventure.com. I read the book, I loved it, I even ordered it, and I plan to take some of my clients through the exercises or practices in the book. And she had a little offer for listeners where it's not really applicable for you guys anymore, but you definitely want to check out her book and her website, because she has a way around really appreciating the richness and depth of relationships, and being able to articulate this in her book. She's a very beautiful person. She has a beautiful voice and beautiful energy. So I really loved having her on the show. She talked about the fear of disconnecting, talked about sexual shame, and the importance of being mindful when we are with our partners. This includes being willing to transform, being able to have trust and transparency with our partners. So she gave examples of what we could do to commit to love. And she suggested the 4-second kiss or hug, because that really allows oxytocin to begin flowing. She also talks about the stop dance, which includes dancing and then suddenly stopping and freezing and noticing what you are aware of in your body. So these are very simple things that she's encouraging us to do so as to become more confident and comfortable with our sexuality. In episode 51 on December 31st, which is New Year's Day for me and the last day of 2015 for my guests, they were Luis Santiago and Janine Tarangas. So we talked about how to stay passionately connected with your partner from the long haul. Very long title. And the nice thing about having them on the show is that Luis was the first male relationship coach to be hired by the Third Day Rule, the official matchmaker for Match.com. He was voted the best of the West matchmaker on NBC reality series The Match Off. And Janine is a certified Reiki practitioner and spiritual advisor. So together they are called the Love Coaches, and you can check them out at their website, thelovecoaches.com. They have some very interesting things that they've created. During the show, they shared the RED model, which stands for respect, respected, appreciated, desired. And they emphasize on how this will help strengthen relationships. And they also have this program called the Illumination Program that focuses on opening hearts. And they emphasized on the importance of friendship, passion, and communication in order to have strong relationships. So they use the analogy of a campfire for passion, a plant for friendship, communication. They talked about that as well. They also shared the SAFE paradigm, which stands for, S stands for seek the truth, what do I want? A stands for accept accountability and responsibility. F stands for free your mind, or getting rid of old pain. E stands for express and expand your needs, wants, concerns. And they also talked about the 7 top sexual questions that can be very good conversational starters for couples, because a lot of us are not comfortable with sex and sexuality growing up in some kind of environment where usually there's repression and suppression around sexuality. So they suggested 7 top sexual questions that couples can ask each other to really understand each other's sexual essence, what they like and who they are. So this is an episode, as you can tell, which is very rich in content, and I'm sure you will enjoy it. And it's episode 51 on December 31st, how to stay passionately connected with your partner for the long haul. And their website is thelovecoaches.com. On January 7, episode 52, this was a show that I just did all by myself, and I basically took listeners through the workshop that I have called Sacred Pause. In that online virtual workshop that I ran during that 1-hour show, I was talking about having gratitude for 2015 and doing planning for 2006. It's very important to do that because often we just get so busy and frazzled with life, we don't really take a little pause, just like I'm doing now, and be able to reflect on what we really, really want. In Sacred Pause, I took people through a little body scan where you scan how you're feeling in your body, physically, energetically, and emotionally. From there, I took them through a process of checking into, in their mind's eye, what they were going through in the last year, 2015, scanning through the different months. And then I took them through a little wheel of life exercise of reflecting how they are happy in the different areas of their lives. We did a little bit of releasing. We got clear about our goals of what we do want in 2015. And I also suggested during the show that listeners consider creating some kind of a vision board and to infuse their intentions for 2016 with sexual magic. So if you're interested to find out what sex magic is about and how one can take a little mini workshop and pause on life, then you may want to check out episode 52 in January, on January 7th that I did this episode. For those of you who are not aware, in 2 weeks' time also we will have the spring equinox, and this is a good time also to do a pause. So I will be running a workshop in Singapore on March 20th entitled Sacred Pause as well, and I will take my participants through this process. So if you're interested to work with me, to go on a little journey with me, we could do something like that on Skype, for instance. And you can find me on Eros Coaching, that's EROS coaching.com. You can drop me an email and we can explore how we can work together. In episode 53, January 14, I had my schoolmate and friend, Dr. Liam Captain Snowden, and he talked about building your sexual solidarity team. I was very intrigued by what he meant by sexual solidarity team, and he explained it's a little bit like how some people visualize a council of advisories in their mind's eye, and they may call on the spirit and soul of certain enlightened people who they may not even know, who may not be alive. For instance, like Muhammad Gandhi or Martin Luther King, and you can invite them to be on your board to seek counsel from them. So he talked about also creating a similar concept around our sexuality, and that's how he came out with the concept of sexual solidarity team. Dr. Liam's Captain Snowden, I call him Captain, he is actually quite spiritual, and he believes in, he practices witchen, I think, which is kind of like, what witches practices, but of course he's a good witch. And so in this episode, he talked about spirituality and as well, and it's actually full of different ideas in which one can practice spirituality so as to deepen their own relationship with themselves. So it's a very, very rich episode. I'm just going to give you some examples. So he talked about the sexual solidarity team, like I mentioned, and he gave suggestions of how to use them. So for instance, you can visualize them, your team, standing up at your wedding. investing in the couple, being in circle with them, and having them, your friends, to also be part of your rites of passage. So you can create rituals and ceremony that make sense for you, that helps you to transition and also help you to have movement in your life. It talked about perfectionism, how that he was like that before, and now he actually celebrates failures, and he doesn't consider a breakup a failure. He considers them collective liberation. So he acknowledges that relationships can be messy and it's all related. So he introduced the concept of decolonization, which means having awareness and noticing the forces that are out there, and yet being very conscious that there were choices that they didn't want things to happen. So he talked about consent culture, and he also talked about the importance of showing up for each other and having more of what we do want rather than what we don't want. He talked about this great book called Erotic Massage for Healing. He also mentioned Joseph Kramer, who is also my teacher, who offers through the New School of Erotic Touch many online videos and training materials that people can look into. He talked about also the link between sexuality and spirituality, and to him it's different sides of the same coin, how they're interwoven, how life force energy is spirituality and is sexual energy for him. We also talked a little bit about whether it's possible to have unspiritual sex and what that means. So if you're interested to really explore the richness of what I went into with Captain, then do check out episode 53 on January 14. And his website is actually captainsnowden.ca. That's Captain Snowden, SNOWDON.ca. So if you're interested, stay tuned and we'll go into the different episodes after this break.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
The truth is, you can't change the world if you're broke. I know, I've tried. Isn't it time you turned your life's calling into a profitable, freedom-based business? I'm Michelle Barr. Join me every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern for Sacred Success.
Have you been searching for a perspective beyond the mainstream? Check it out. Join your hosts Cielito Pascual and Diana Gold Holland on Share International Radio for thought-provoking views behind the news, Sundays at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio. You can also find us at shareontheairradio.org. This may be the message of hope you've been waiting for.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. Simone Milasas would like you to know that business can be fun, which is why she wrote the book, Joy of Business. What if you could have the joy of business rather than the stress and struggle? Most of the time, the only thing stopping you from a thriving business is you. In the Joy of Business book, Simone gives you access consciousness tools and pragmatic ways to get out of your own way and to create the business, life, and living you know is possible and beyond what this reality says is achievable. Business is joy. It's creation. It's generative. It can be the adventure of living. You can purchase your copy of the book through Amazon or Joy of Business website, www.accessjoyofbusiness.com. The best of holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM.
You are listening to Eros Evolution on the OMTimes Radio Network, and you can share this show with your friends right now by sending them the link omtimes.com/mobile. With this link, your friends will be able to listen to the show without needing to download any app. That's really cool. In today's episode, we are summarizing the past 13 episodes of Eros Evolution, and I have just summarized the first 6 episodes. And right now we are going into episode 54, where we are talking about Loving the Skin That You Are In by Monique Darling and Peter Peterson. This was on January 21st when I was actually in Sydney. And during the episode, she talked about how she was shamed, and it was very difficult for Monique when she was growing up. She talked about the importance of looking into yourself and your vulnerability, how we always are hiding from ourselves and trying to put on our best face all the time. And when we look into the mirror, we can be sometimes our harshest critics, and we can be very judgmental to ourselves. Often we may go into distraction, where we go into TV, drugs, sleep, gossip, and we put ourselves last. So she wanted us, encouraged us to reclaim selfish and becoming more self-centered. When we come from a place of being overfilled and in bliss, this is when we really start going into what's truly possible, and it's a practice that we need to do in our more normal daily life. She also talked about how she was introduced to cuddle parties, and now they really heal her, and now that she facilitates them. In fact, Monique Darling is working on her book right now on cuddle parties, and the book is going to be about her journey of how she became a better person through cuddle parties. And the book shares the different rules to cuddle parties, and they include no need to cuddle, no being a powerful gift, being able to trust your no, be able to say no so that I can trust your yes. And other rules include, if you are yes, say yes. If it's a no, say no. You're always allowed to change your mind. If it's a maybe, it's a no. Laughter and tears are always welcomed at cuddle parties. If you are so Peter Patterson talked about, because he has a background in Qigong, he talked about the 9 S's that lead to longevity. So the path to longevity, and he talks about the 9 things. They include silence, swim, sleep, sharing, sex, singing, sun, and smiling. So they were, they were very good in explaining their work, and I was very intrigued, and I'm very interested, and I'm looking forward to reading both their books. So Monique Darling, you can find her at juicyenlightenment.com, and Peter Peterson, you can find him at awakenbodyandsoul.com. Moving on, we also had in episode 55, No One Wants Sex. So what do we really want? With my colleague and ex-schoolmate, Dr. Tanjanika Kuskut, on April 28th. She has a lot of interest in neuroscience, and so this episode was a little bit more scientific, where she explained neurochemistry and hormones like dopamine and oxytocin, and what happens in our brains when we feel positive and feel good after sex. What happens in our bodies during that time. Besides that, she talked about skin hunger and how we actually feel sick because we are not touched, and this place of abundance, of overflowing, once again, similar to what Monique talked about, was what she talked about. She also asked how to get what we really want through sex. The first being knowing yourself, knowing your body, your mind, your soul, your sex, being your own advocate on how you can be fulfilled sexually. Number one, that's number one, knowing yourself. Number two is experimenting with yourself, continue to learn about your body and what feels good and how you can satisfy your skin hunger. All this helps create new pathways of connection for yourselves. For her, she talks about how sexuality and spirituality is not and cannot be separate. She actually says we will die if we separate them. We cannot just be a mental person, and we need to really be in all elements, all components of who we are. So she talked about being clear with our needs and our wants, and that was Tanjanika Kuskut. In episode 56, I talked to Rob and Janelle Alex for the second time, and they were introducing their new ebook coming out called The Secret Intelligence of Relationships, and that was also the title of our show. You can find out more about them by going to missiondatenight.com, and also they have another new website that's going to be launched called thecouplespot.com. So I forgot to mention for Dr. Tanjanika Kuskut, you can check her out at the Dr. Tangi, thesexdoctor.com. So coming back to Rob and Janelle Alex, we talked about everything to do with relationships, and we talked about why couples need adventure in their relationships, how important playfulness is in the bedroom, how having adventure and having the element of the unknown in the relationship can help sustain the unknown, how sexual energy is connected to our sex life, and how to keep sex spontaneous, how to have laughter, playfulness in relationships. And you can tell this couple, they really work at their relationship. They do disagree. They do still argue. However, what they do have is an amazing sex life because they put in the effort, because they want to have an amazing sex life. And Rob and Janelle were able to really relate, I feel, to listeners because they were willing to be real with us. They also talked about sexual polarity, and we discussed about gender roles and how that can be one of the challenges that they can play around in the bedroom. So they shared this little game that they have called Pillow Sutra, and it's a fun episode, and I really encourage you to listen to it if you really want to hear how this is modeled in another couple who don't try to pretend to be perfect, who are in fact very real and first to admit that they do argue. However, they still are able to be very conscious about what they do want, which is fun, laughter, playfulness in the bedroom. In the next episode, I then went to talk to Joan Price on senior sex. This was in episode 57 on February 11th, and we talked about how just because one person is older, it doesn't mean that they need to stop having sex, and they just need to find new ways and different ways in order to be creative in the bedroom and continue to have this spirit of adventure. Humor is also very important, and sex has a lot of benefits, including lowering stress in our bodies. And just because the arousal is slower and one needs more stimulation, it doesn't mean that sex has to stop. She emphasized on the importance of solo pleasure and solo sex. Just because you don't have a partner as an older person, it doesn't mean that you stop being sexual, because once you do that, you're depriving yourself, your body stops being sexually aroused, you stop having orgasms. Actually, when you do have a partner or you do want to be sexual, it becomes really difficult, and it can be scary when you just turn it off. So the saying of if you don't use it, you lose it certainly rings true for her as well. I also have the same opinion, and she just offers this piece of wisdom during the show, and it means just do it because you feel better for it, and you do need to put aside time, make it a priority, otherwise it's just not going to happen. She even goes as far as to suggest during the show that we should actually schedule 2 sex dates with ourselves, because in case things happen in life that we can't make it for one date, at least we have the second date that we will definitely have time with ourselves to be sexual. So this is how she really values the importance of maintaining and keeping our sexual engine going. She also went into talking about the changes that can happen as one ages. For instance, with the penis, there may be erection dissatisfaction. There might be clitoral and vaginal issues. She also introduces the concept of responsive versus spontaneous desire, which means some people don't get turned on, they don't feel horny, and they need to get started, and then they will start responding. So being responsive versus spontaneous, because as you get older, maybe you don't feel as horny as you used to do. So this is a little nutshell of what we talked about during the show. And Joan was very open in sharing also how she went through menopause and how it felt for her, what she did. Right now she's using a vaginal ring, which gives a very low dosage of estrogen. And she also gave advice about what we should be thinking about when working with a medical profession. And in case you don't know this, but Joan is very well known for her work advocating senior sexuality, and this is a very interesting topic for me. She also talked about how she reviews sex toys and why she reviews them. She always only reviews sex toys that are body safe, that don't carry toxic materials, that are suitable for aging vaginas. She uses that word, that passes the test of being from positive retailers, and she doesn't think that there's a best sex toys out there. However, she talks about how we can better figure out sex toys that works for us. So you want to check out her and her website, that's joanprice.com, and also another website of hers, nakedatOurAge.com.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Have you bought into the idea that you have to work hard for your money, that business is hard? I will share some dynamic access consciousness tools to get you out of your own way so you can create a business that actually succeeds. Join me, Simone Millisers, on The Joy of Business at 4 p.m. Mondays Eastern.
Come heal yourself. What is healing? Healing is nothing but connecting with your all-knowing higher self that already has solutions to all your problems and is always there to guide you. Through this show, we help you to connect with that you are and tap into that innate potential you have to transform your life and fly high. Please join me, your host Monica Goyal, every Sunday, 7 p.m. Pacific. Namaste.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle. Bringing you the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio, your conscious lifestyle on steroids.
We are into the last 15 minutes of Eros Evolution. In this show, we always explore the link between sexuality and spirituality. And in today's episode, I am reviewing and summarizing for the fourth time the past episodes of Eros Evolution. And today I've been summarizing the last 13, and we have 2 more to go. So we're making good time. In episode 58 on February 18, this was just 2 weeks ago, I talked to Eve Minix on how on getting the kinks out, erotic explorations. We explored with her kinky sex, and she actually shared how she first got into kink and how she became the leading kink educator that she is. She talked a little bit about herself and her sexual orientation as well. She identifies as somebody who is gender fluid, and she rather that calling people kinky, she rather that we use the word sexual explorer, because when you say that you are a kinky person, you are in danger of telling the other person you're communicating with that they are not. She encourages us to use instead the word sexual explorer, because that's what we are. We are all exploring and learning about ourselves, and we are on a journey, and this can change over time. She talks about how she used to do this for fun. She would tie down her lovers, and gender is not something that she identifies with, and she's not really caught up in that, because she's just attracted to people based on their personality and their energy. She talks about during this show how she became this dominatrix, how she would do it in New York, how she got in touch with Cleo Dubois and started working with her. So in this episode, it was a very personal show, and there were some takeaways for listeners out there. The emphasis that, you know, rather than shutting down her sexuality, she did work on herself, and no matter how smooth our childhood was, we will still have some baggage that society would create people who need some kind of sexual healing and growth. And we can all do this through mindfulness, because, you know, she came from being sexually abused, and she worked on herself, and she didn't shut down her sexuality, even though she tried. And it's great that she didn't succeed. So we talked about it, and we also talked about Tantra and how she is also interested in the work of different teachers and how she brings that into her work. So she was very generous in mentioning the work of other people, and you may want to check out her website. That's Eve Minix. That's MINAX.com. That's Eve MINAX.com, and she also has another website that's mistressminix.com, and she also has the website that she does work with Cleo Dubois. That's sm-arts.com. She also is a bondage practitioner, and you can check out bondage. That's BONDASSAGE.com. So bondage is a practice where you are essentially giving someone massage, but only using very light sensuous touch. The person is tied down. That's why bondage, and massage. So the person is bonded, but you're also massaging the person. It is BDSM, however, there is no pain at all. It's very, very sensuous, and this is something that can be quite erotic. So there you go. We have Eve Minix, and then the episode that just happened last week was on sacred sexuality and conscious loving for singles and couples. I had Don Beck and Gerard Getz. We talked about the bringing the sacred of loving into relationship, whether you are single or whether you are with a partner. Talked about tantric practices of breath, sound, touch, chakra awakening, letting go of past trauma, and opening up to more trust and love. So let me go specifically into what we talked about during the show. They address the myths around Tantra that you will need to be in an orgy, or have multiple partners, or have out-of-body experiences, or have sex all night long. So they dispelled some of these myths, and instead they talked about Tantra being this 4,000-year-old system where it's all about expansion through awareness, how we feel energy, feel more connected to our heart, worthiness, power, life purpose, intuition, spirit. They emphasize on the simplicity of it, how right now with Neo Tantra, what we are doing, modern day Tantra, what we are doing is we are blending ancient languaging of mantra and mudra, and it's more about dipping in and out to experience what Tantra is about. They talked about energy chakras and how they can feel blocked and stuck, and it is important to not see the lower chakras as worse, but that all of it being part of the system and being important. They talked about how we go through heartache, grief, abandonment, and this affects our chakras, and how we need to let go of places in which we are wounded, what leads to shut down, so that we can be whole again. They talked about the yoni and the lingam, the yoni being the sacred space for women's, it refers to female genitals, and the lingam being the male genitals. And they talked about the sacred spot for male, and I was very, very surprised. This was new to me. I was very happy that I learned this. The sacred spot for male is not the prostate gland for men. So you can reach the prostate gland through the anus. So I thought that was the sacred spot in Tantra. However, they said actually the sacred spot for men is not the prostate gland. However, it's 1 inch into the anus. And through massaging this area, you can actually help unlock emotional blocks. And they refer to the anus as the rose petal. So we don't just go into people's anuses because we want to. There are actually healing and emotional releases that are being done. They talked about how we get deflowered when we lose our virginity. However, they introduced the term of reflowered, which means being very conscious about asking for permission, about breathing energy into your body through your vagina, and how the sound ah can be a way of letting go through our heart center, because we don't just hold energy in our bodies, we need to let it go. And so they suggested the ah sound as a way to do so. So the way to the heart is through the yoni for women, and the way to the heart for men is through the lingam, which actually also stands for a wand of light. They introduced the term ejaculation, choice, and control. And when a man has the ability to control their ejaculation, then there's this possibility of being able to take away the goal or the need to come now, and being able to play with energies. They talked about the importance of having strong pelvic floor muscles or pubicoccygis muscles, or doing Kegel exercises. It's not just about the second chakra. It's also, once you have strong pelvic floor muscles, being able to move that energy to your heart, and the possibility of having heart orgasms, or heartgasms they call it. So if you're interested in Tantra, then do check out this episode, which is episode 59, and today is episode 60. So just a very quick summary of the summary. If you are interested in location-based training or location-based references, you want to look at episode 48, where we talked about sexuality in Poland. And if you're interested in online sexuality, you want to look at episode 49, where we talked about online sexuality training that's available through Creative Sexuality by Eva Degar. And if you're interested in professional training, sexological body work, and having a sexual solidarity team, you want to look at episode 53, where I interviewed my friend Dr. Liam Snowden, or Captain. If you are if you are in a relationship and you want to understand the richness and the fullness of relationships, I had different guests coming on the last 13 episodes talking about it. In episode 50, I had Piazza talking about intimacy adventures. 51, I had Luis Santiago and Janine Taragas talking about being in a relationship on the long haul. I also had in episode 56, Rob and Janelle Alex talking about the secret intelligence of relationships. And in the episode last week, I talked about sacred sexuality and conscious living for singles and couples with Don Beck and Gerard Getz. If you're interested in BDSM, then there's episode 58 where I was with Eve Minex. And I only have one episode talking about elderly sex or senior sex with Joan Price in episode 57. And I really love Joan, and unfortunately we had some tech issues where we were cut off twice during the show. There was some editing that was done to the episode. However, it's not flawless and it's not perfect. I felt really bad because I was looking forward and I was wanting Joan to come on my show for a very, very long time because she's a very well-known advocate for senior sexuality, and this is a very, very important topic because now, as you know, we have an aging population and we are living longer. And just because you're older doesn't mean your sex life is dead. And it's so important to have someone like Joan Price coming on to Eros Evolution. I'm quite well aware of that. Unfortunately, that show did have some tech difficulties, not because of the station, but because of me, because I had some computer issues. I felt really bad about it. So this has been Dr. Martha Tara Lee talking about all the past 13 episodes of Eros Evolution. And if you are interested in Urban Tantra, I have another very well-known guest coming on next week, and her name is Barbara Corrales. Again, I have been trying to get her onto the show for a long time, so do tune in next week for Eros Evolution, and we'll be talking about Urban Tantra. Do check out Eros Evolution next week. See you next week. This has been Dr. Martha Tara Lee of Eros Coaching. Check out my website, eroscoaching.com.